Bosky Mukherjee, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Christine. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, so really excited to get started.
We were connected by a mutual connection, Melissa Appel, and I realized once we were connected exactly why she put us in touch. I was thinking about our shared passion for helping product teams, also our shared passion for amplifying, boosting women. Immediately as we started speaking, I felt like I had known you much longer than just a day or two and now a month or two. So thank you for joining. I'm really excited as well.
I think that's the power of sisterhood, right?
Absolutely. And I can go on and on about your background. What I did want to share with my audience, and then I'll let you tell your story. So the way I've been describing you is you're a powerhouse woman, both in product, but also a powerhouse woman who's amplifying and boosting other women. You are the founder of SheTrailblazes, which is helping women, as you mentioned, future-proof their careers. You're also the CEO and founder of PM Dojo, which is an organization that has been around about 6-7 years, where you've been helping product teams in terms of building products fast, swiftly, and also helping them improve their bottom and top line results. So thank you for being here. I mentioned I could go on and on, but Bosky, can you share a little bit? I like starting these conversations, giving you a chance to share your story.
Thank you. I think just a little bit about myself. So I came to the US as an international student way back 2002, 2003 for my master's. And after that, I've come to the US again and again as well. But the first time was 2002, 2003. I found my first entry-level job. It was right at the bottom. It was a tech support associate or some sort of a crazy title with barely any salary. It was in a very early stage startup in real estate tech space before platforms like Zillow existed, before Google Maps existed. So that should give some sense of how dinosaur era we are talking about. And then got super interested along the way. So that company went bankrupt, just like a lot of startups. But I got super interested along the way in human behavior and how, as humans, we say X and then we end up doing Y. And it became a pretty big inflection point in my career, especially as someone who doesn't like conflict. I really needed to understand human behavior a lot better. And that's what kind of got me super interested. I would observe a lot of conversations happening at workplace, also read a lot. And then after that, I ended up joining different startups, smaller companies, some big companies as well. And I've been in all kinds of roles from design, UXR, marketing, account management, product, all the way to senior executive roles. Also worked in lots of different domains like classic SaaS or marketplace e-commerce, climate tech, software, hardware, B2B, B2C. And so a very big generalist that I would consider myself. I've lived and worked in a few different countries, Canada, Bermuda, the tiny little island off the east coast of US, UK, US, of course, at present. Left corporate in 2019. At that point in time, so this was before pandemic. We had no idea pandemic was coming. But in 2019, my health got really bad. But I was also at a point where I think started asking a lot of questions of myself as to what do I really want the next phase of my career to be and what do I see? And it was hard thinking about any of these things because at that point in time, I was also working as a president of a software SaaS company and I had worked extremely hard to reach the top. And so I didn't want to let go. But I gave myself 3 months to figure out the business model, problem market fit, whether I wanted to return back to the corporate, whether I wanted to do something on my own. I chose the latter. And that's what I've been doing since 2019. So, experimented a whole lot on profitability, monetization, business model, and all of those. And that's how SheTrailblazes came into being. Outside of work, I'm a mom to a wonderful 10-year-old who also has a very profitable luxury candle business. He makes candles in the evening, which means I got to do clean up in the evening in our kitchen. But yes, he is the center of my world along with my dog.
Bosky, thank you so much. With my lens as a researcher, I have so many questions I want to unpack. First, you were talking about working in the dinosaur era. I did as well. I like describing it now that we're seasoned. I'm curious how you're describing yourself. Like, I don't know how to describe myself at this point. Seasoned, midlife from the dinosaur era. Do you have some thoughts about that? Like, I'm really having a hard time describing that.
I think it's a really, really good observation. I don't think I use dinosaur era when I'm introducing myself to clients or anything, but I like to see and think of us as people who've seen a few things and people with enough perspective to figure it out. I mean, we've seen the financial crisis, we've seen the housing crisis, we've seen where the tech industry didn't have a lot, and we've seen when it was booming with lots of plenty, and now we're seeing the spiral, right? So it's like coming full circle. And I think that gives us a very unique perspective. I definitely feel like things are going to turn out okay.
Yeah.
I think that's how I like to describe. We've seen a lot of things, and I think that adds to the value that a lot of people with 10, 15, 20 years bring to the table, because we can maybe connect dots and not see everything as doom and gloom. Maybe that's just me and my positive attitude out here. Yeah, maybe pragmatic people. I don't know.
I'm wondering, as a mom, how did your son seeing what you were accomplishing inform his work? It must have had a big influence on him.
I definitely think, because he says that he's older, and so he has lots of opinions and he's very clear. But something that I would notice that he would do, this definitely started over the last, I would say, 4-ish years. And so first it would come where he was really interested in Canva. So I would do my presentations every time, right? And he would come and he would be like, I think we need to fix this. You need to fix this. He would correct my typos. So when I would be writing stories about a success story, and I'd be like, okay, I can write. Why don't you create the banner? And I would give him the stuff. And then it started with him really interested in watching the resources that I would create for the women in my program. So commercial fluency is a big part of, I think, what I believe I teach women in both of my programs and SheTrailblazes. And he is very much interested in the commercial side. So he would actually tell me to open up where I've stored all of the videos and resources, and he would actually read and watch the video and then sit down and build his own margin and P&L and all of those things. So that was really interesting. And then there was another thing where I was teaching about storytelling and how do you pitch. That was another piece that he was so interested. And so we would practice those. And then he pitched me that I should hire him for $1 million because he would help me grow into a billion dollar business. You wouldn't believe, one of his books that he likes is Jake Knapp's sprint book.
Unbelievable. And I did want to ask, your son got to see you building SheTrailblazes. Let's talk about SheTrailblazes. Specifically, you were mentioning a couple of areas that you do focus on with women. You were mentioning commercial fluency. I also wanted to talk about narrative authority and where that comes into play. You're holding workshops with women all the time to help boost their careers and future-proof their careers. Let's start with narrative authority and speak a little to what are you teaching women? What's helping them leap to the next level?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think for the longest period of my time, since I started my career, actually even before I started my career, when I was in college and university, I was bombarded with a few things that apparently were recipes to a successful career. And maybe you can relate to this too. Pretty certain you've heard some of these. One is you have to say yes to another project. Like you have to take on another project, right? Like that was somehow like the holy grail. Like you have to do more, right? Another thing that I kept on hearing was that you have to speak up. And I was an introvert. I was very, very shy. I'm still shy. It takes a lot of effort to speak. I think it comes a little bit more naturally than before over the years. But it seemed to be like for so many years, I was stressing myself out when I would go to any meeting, be like, I have to say something. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't say, then people are going to think I don't know anything and I've basically wrecked everything. And it was just the pressure to say something. Then I would see people who would speak literally garbage. Like I had no clue what they ever said anything. And I'm like, if I have to think about all of that, that's like a lot of work. I'm just not like them. And then the third piece that I kept on hearing from my college university days was that I have to have a mentor. And I've worked in companies where there were formal mentorship programs. And I'm not saying that these three things don't help. But after a certain point, after you've gotten a couple of those promotions, you've gotten those entry-level roles, I don't think for women they actually help. Because if you think about it, we're already working. Give me one job where you have a whole bunch of bandwidth left to keep on taking more projects. Like we're working, we're taking work home. And so if you keep on working and keep on working and keep on saying yes to more, then you're going to end up in a place where you won't even have the mental capacity to think about how you're going to strategically communicate about the work that you're already doing. And so if you just keep on working more and working more, then it reinforces the message that you're good at what you do. You will never be able to elevate and level up to strategically thinking and communicating. And so when I am working with women, I think the first thing that we do is to break the cycle of some of this advice that we've been fed through generations, probably, or maybe definitely starting our career. And so I always say that you have to learn how to communicate about your work, not about brag list, because that doesn't help once you're mid-career or past 5, 6, 7 years. You can't just be talking about, oh, here is my brag list. Oh, here is the list of my impact. But even if you were working on the least sexy thing at work, like just keeping the lights on in your business, how do you talk and how do you show the impact or communicate in a way that's going to get the executives excited? Because there is no project that's going to get authorized in a company that doesn't impact the bottom line. Especially right now, where companies are so closely monitoring their costs, performance managing employees. Like you don't have the flexibility to be like, okay, I'm working on this project, but really it doesn't impact. I don't even know why we're doing it. No, there is a reason why we're doing it. Even if it is someone's ego and pet project at the top, there is a reason. And so how do you find that to communicate? Not so much your work, but how do you communicate the impact of your work in a way where you're already speaking at the level in the language of the executive? So that is really, really important. How do you speak in a C-suite language? The second piece that becomes really important is then, because you cannot go and refuse. If you get assigned a project, a lot of people will tell me, I don't want to work on this, I want to work. And I'm like, okay, think about this just tactically. Can you tell your manager, no, I'm not going to work on this project. I'm going to give me another project where I can show my impact? No.
Yeah.
And so again, if you have 3 or 4 projects, then how do you communicate and translate that impact into those metrics that the executives really care about? That's where the commercial fluency come in. It's not just about business goal. That is bare minimum to keep your job. But then how do you connect it with some bigger metrics? Because at the end of the day, you have to understand how the money moves inside your business or inside the company. How does your company lose money? How does your company make money? How does everything that you do connect to the P&L? Whether your company is a publicly traded company or whether it's a small startup, you need to know the budgets. And you cannot go and ask, if you're not in a very senior position, give me the P&L. So what kind of questions do you need to ask? And that needs strategic framing as well. How do you ask those questions so that you can start connecting the dots and making some educated guesses?
I was thinking about when you were discussing the things we're told, and you said they'd sound familiar to me, saying yes, or speak up more, or find those mentors. As you mentioned, it's about communicating your impact and the effect you're having on the business. The recommendation to speak up more. I hear from a lot of women that in meetings, especially at the C-suite, they're in their head, that they're having an inner dialogue with themselves. And I'm sure that even comes up with some of the women you're working with. You've told them what they could do, but that inner voice is still having a dialogue. Do you see that with your clients? And if so, when you're in the meeting with the CEO and you're having a dialogue with the CEO, but also yourself, what to do?
Yes, it's a great question. I mean, it happens with me even now.
Me too.
And I think I've come to a place where I'm like, okay, this thing is coming up. So then I start taming it. And then, of course, I use some of the tools. I think a couple of things. One piece that I work very closely with women is it's relatively easy to think about what I should have said in the meeting, in hindsight, right? So I work with women to make sure that they get so good in learning to speak on the spot, and think on their feet so that we can reduce the amount of time it takes between our brain thinking about the answer and trying to understand the question and then speaking up. Because if we don't do, then either few things are going to happen. Either we're going to over-explain, which I think as women, we just have a tendency sometimes to do, right? We might over-explain, or we might take a little bit longer, or we might blurt out something in just reacting to the situation, and that doesn't go well. So it's about building that muscle. And so there are a few things that I do. So I think one thing could be a little bit of prep work, right? Just understand the topic. I'm a big fan of time boxing. And so apparently my mom says that I used to time box as a little girl, but I would always give myself, like, I wanted to do a lot of stuff as a little girl, like lots of stuff. And it wasn't like just playing like crazy. I loved reading books, and I had this goal of finishing all of my books that I would borrow from the library. And the only way I could do it, apparently, was time boxing it. And I wanted to read a lot, which meant that I would never complete a book in one sitting. So I would time box the different books and then time box my painting and time box all of these different things. So I still use time boxing like a maniac to this day. I time box everything in about 20 minutes increments. So you could do 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever that is your jam. But you could say, okay, I'm going to prepare. And okay, what is my question? Rather than thinking, what should I ask? Try to maybe ask yourself, like, okay, are there one or two questions that I have about this meeting or about the topic that's being discussed? And the third thing that I work, this does take a little bit of effort, is actually working on the mindset. So when we go into meetings, we are actually pressuring ourselves in our head, thinking about, okay, what question should I ask? What question should I ask? So we're not even listening a lot of the time, because we're so much in our head. But the mindset out here is, okay, forget that. I've done my prep. I've got one question or two questions that I know I'm going to just ask anyway, which I have thought from before about this topic. And I'm going to just listen, just curiously listen. And then I have a question in the back pocket if I have to ask, rather than pressuring myself. And I think the other thing that I have is, sometimes the questions can come to you. So then what do you do? And something that I work with women a lot is, you don't have to have an answer. If you don't have an answer, you're not going to look dumb. It is, what do you say when you don't have an answer? So you can be like, we can get defensive and we can give a bad answer that can do more damage. We can be called offensive, which I know as women, we can get called much more than men, but it can genuinely feel like it is defensive to the other person. Or we can just be like, hey, that's a great question. Let me actually find some of this information and get back to you and make sure that you close the loop. Don't get into the pressure to just say. And I think that's what it is, right? It's like, oh, we can't look dumb. We have to give the answer. No, you don't have to. It's better to pause and say, I'm going to come back. It's a great question. Acknowledge that. Then give some answer that is ill thought, not well thought, and that doesn't really answer the question.
Yeah. I was thinking about your whole notion of strengthening a muscle. And I was thinking that before you even said it, strengthening the muscle of learning how to navigate and communicate at the C level. I'm wondering, like, back to mindset, there's this growth mindset notion here as well, that I've talked with a lot of people, mainly women, who say, you know what, I just can't communicate at that level. I just can't. And as you're mentioning, it's a learned skill. And this whole notion of prepping and being prepared in time boxing, that's key. I wondered, having the question in mind, I'm sure that helps. You're already prepared. You have a question you can ask. And as you mentioned, then you can focus on listening to others. I'm also wondering if having that question in mind, why it's so effective, is it helps women get out of their heads. It helps them attend to the other people in the room.
Yes, 100%, 100%. It just takes that edge off. And this is what I've seen time and time again. And I think as you're talking about the muscle and all of this, a muscle needs to be exercised. Coming from someone who's just started to go to gym regularly, because I have to get that baby weight off after 10 years. The first few times it's going to be painful. My body is really sore, like my arm, my thighs, my back is really sore. It's because I haven't built those muscles, right? I haven't been using it. And so it's going to be painful. Are you going to get it 100% right? No. But over time, it's going to hurt less and less and less. Now, it is easy to say this in a gym situation. It becomes very high stake in a work situation. And so something that I do a lot when, in our programs is that we actually role play and we practice. And my job is to be the nastiest stakeholder. So that's it. I'm going to come and stop you. I'm going to take over the topic. I'm going to do all of those things because the thing that I've seen, the women in my program start getting results in 2-3 weeks when it comes to this. It's because of building this. Mm-hmm. And it's about practicing this in a really, really safe environment and seeing, because it's all about getting to the place where you can start thinking and speaking on your feet, not afterwards. So it's like I just flip into the worst nightmare.
Going back to, you said saying yes all the time. No, not necessarily speaking up. No, in certain circumstances, saying the right thing. Mentors. There was something that you shared that was so valuable for me in terms of thinking of the distinction between mentors and sponsors. And the reason, it's something that people may think of, but for me, it was an aha moment because I've spoken to many women in tech who say having role models and mentors are along the way or helps them pave their path. But you do make the distinction between a mentor and a sponsor. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. This took me years of spiraling and keeping on adding one mentor after the other, like women mentors, men mentors, exec mentors, this and that.
So you had a network of mentors.
There is a role of mentors, but it's important to understand the role of mentors in your career. The key distinction here in my head, what I see play out a lot, is this. Mentors will guide you. They might help problem solve with you. Please do get mentors. But if your mentors are not people with pull, influence, political capital in your company at the highest level, then they're not going to be able to open up career opportunities and promotions for you, right? Salary increases for you. So most of the time, mentors are external, or even if mentors are internal in your company, but the main thing here is political capital. Political capital at the highest levels is like season. I might have a political capital this quarter and suddenly I've done something, I've said something, I've irritated another peer, and suddenly my political capital gets decreased. It's happened to me at those highest levels. It's ugly out there, even in the best culture, like companies with best culture, right? Not to say that people are bad or people are sabotaging others. I'm not saying that. This is just the nature of things. And so if your mentors cannot give you access, then you're going to keep on spiraling. You're going to keep on performing. You're going to keep on tweaking your presentation slides. You may tweak how you present in the next meeting, but you're not going to have access to those opportunities. So it's really important to get sponsors, people who have decision-making authority, budgetary authority in the companies. And these are usually very senior folks. You have to get multiple people at the org to be saying, yes, I want Christine to get promoted. And so you have to have a few, not just one, because with the upper layer reorgs and turnover, you don't want to be in a situation where you build a relationship with one sponsor and suddenly that sponsor is no longer in the company, or you've moved to a different part of the org. You have to start the gymnastics again. So that's like a big difference between sponsors. Sponsors will give you access. Mentors will guide you. Some sponsors can be your mentors, but not all mentors are sponsors. And just like you can go and ask someone to be your mentor, you cannot go and ask someone to sponsor you. So that is where, again, your commercial fluency and your strategic framing becomes so important. And I think I'm just going to end this on the sponsorship topic. Just to summarize, I think this took me a long time to understand that as humans, so this goes back to the fact where I said, I really like observing human behavior because we tend to say X and then we do Y. And so it was really important for me but it took a long time to understand. And that is, as humans, as just regular people without any malice, we tend to support people who remind us of ourselves. Now, who do we have majority in senior level exec roles? Men. So a senior male executive sees John, young John. Oh my God, John kind of reminds me, like the protege, kind of reminds me of me when I was in that phase of my career. And then you have Jenny. Jenny doesn't remind. And so this is why sponsorship becomes really, really important, because I'm not saying you have to have women sponsors. Like, that is math. You cannot change that overnight. We live in a world where I would love to see women executives, but we have more male executives than women. And so how do you then strike a conversation if you cannot build on commonality? So you have to then go in the other way around, right? There's always a way to problem solve. And so you have to find a way to connect and communicate where you're not giving a project update to these senior executives in the hope that you're going to get a sponsor. So you need to go and knock at the doors.
That's knocking on the doors. Okay, so you're a mid-career woman. You're working, it doesn't have to be tech, but let's just imagine you're a mid-career product manager right now, and they're listening to you right now, that it's not about going up to people in the organization and saying, will you be my sponsor? I'm wondering, knocking on doors, you mentioned the importance of commercial fluency and having that narrative authority. So I've been learning, speaking with my clients, that taking even just one or two small actions to move forward start setting you up for success. In terms of finding that sponsor, obviously it's having wins in-house, being able to show those wins, especially from a business standpoint. What are one or two small actions, if someone's listening to you mid-career, to start moving in the direction of finding the sponsors? Is it setting up a meeting, or what should they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just share maybe a couple of things that some of my clients have done. So yes, a meeting is an example, but if the senior leader is very, very senior, then it's going to be just hard to get some time. And so there are small things that this woman, I'm just going to call her Jenny for now, Jenny did. One was simple things, right? So the strategic framing, you don't want to wait until you get time to talk to that senior executive. You can do this when you're communicating in a stakeholder update, or you're giving a presentation, or you're going for a quarterly review as a product manager. So many different situations where you can use that C-suite communication skill to be showing up, not in your current role, but halfway down there. So without taking extra work, but halfway down there into that next role. But a couple of things that Jenny did. So number one that she did was they had an all hands a few months ago where a very senior executive said something that kind of it connected with her. And while I was talking to her and we were trying to figure this piece out, I had a strong hunch that this particular exec could be one of the potential sponsors. So I ask a lot of questions to understand the power structure in company, both formal and informal. And I had a few guesses, like I identified potential sponsors, because not everyone's going to be a sponsor, like who's playing whom at that level. And so I had identified about 4 folks. And so this particular exec was one of the ones that I had a strong hunch that maybe. And so I just asked her to send a quick Slack message after the all hands with just 2 or 3 sentences that we worked on, piggybacking on what he said in the all hands that she would have never said. He didn't reply immediately. So it took I think a few months, and then it was just one simple thank you, Jenny. That's it. That's
the message, timely, relevant.
Yes, it showed strategic framing. She talked about the commercial side. She asked a question, a smart question. I call it non-Googleable question. This is where the curiosity comes in. This is where you can show up as someone who kind of understands, like, hey, this is what you talked about, why this is relevant in our business right now, what is happening in the market, and what you said, why does this become so important and relevant right now? And then piggybacking that and just kind of asked a question. So that happened, but nothing came out of it. So I'm like, okay, this was like an EVP and she was at a mid-career level and they had 7 or 8 layers. I didn't expect much to happen. Little acknowledgement, right? And so I call this engineering sponsorship, right? You have to engineer them, which means that they're not going to come knocking at your door, but you're kind of engineering, experimenting, and tweaking. And so the next thing that we did with her was that I continued to ask her about some of these 3 people that I identified as potential sponsors. And I would ask her a lot of questions about what was happening, what were they saying, what were they doing. And she was pretty close to a pilot that she was running for some AI feature that they're building. And I said, okay, so what I want you to do now is, this is why it's very situational and it's very, very, contextual in terms of what is happening in your company. But these are some general guidelines. And so what I told her to do then was then set up a meeting with him, just 15 minutes, and basically say, hey, this pilot is coming to a close and we have X customers that we're piloting with. I know you mentioned something like XYZ a couple months ago in the all hands, so we connected it. And I wanted to get your perspective. This is how I'm thinking, and I wanted to get your perspective if I'm missing something. A lot of women, we really fear about saying I might be missing something because we want to show us we got everything figured out. Because if I say I'm missing something, then, it's going to go against me. And so I think that's what she did. So I looked at that email. We went over back and forth. Like, I really wanted to make sure that this was that one shot. And we had to kind of get, like, it's like fishing. It's like fishing. So we had to kind of get the right bait. We had to get a good quality bait. We had to time it. We had to be in the right place, right? The part of the bridge where the current is going to be really good. And so we went back and forth quite a bit that day. And I asked her to send her the email. And I also asked her to copy his executive assistant. And sure behold, we got a meeting, a 15-minute. It was a non-brainer. 15-minute is not much of an ask. She made it as a coffee chat or a lunch chat or whichever was his preference. And she got a meeting. And then we prepared on how she's going to have that meeting. I did not want that to be a project update meeting. I wanted that to be a dialogue. I wanted that to be a back and forth. And I wanted her to leave with another action so that something else gets scheduled. And it was a really strong conversation to the point where they are having another meeting that has already been scheduled. And this time she didn't have to schedule it. The EA scheduled it on the calendar. And I see this as sponsorship because now this executive leader who didn't even know of Jenny's existence now is actually interested in this rollout and the project. This is going to be that one step that she's going to do. So it's a convoluted, it's not like a mathematical equation. You have to know and identify a few people that are going to be the right fit. And then you got to engineer it. Doesn't have to, again, be a lot. Like, it took us a few days of back and forth to figure out our strategy. But now she has someone and she's really excited about that. He has even sent a couple of Slack messages like, okay, how's that going? And for me, that shows that this particular exec leader has a stake, is interested and wants to see this through. And it's come off in a very natural way where she didn't have to go and ask for a sponsor. I think once I sat on the other side of the table in exec rooms, and I started not only seeing those execs who were way ahead of my career as a first-time exec when I was just observing, and when these requests would come in and I would see what made me say yes to, what made someone else say yes to, and a whole bunch of experimentation. But it took me a long time to figure this out because no one talks about it this way. Right?
Yeah. There was, as you were sharing that scenario around Jenny, I wanted to ask you about your primary audience right now with SheTrailblazes. I know you have an amazing workshop that women are coming to learn about how to set themselves up to get promoted. It's also, I know you're not just working with women in tech, but a lot of women in tech come to you, and it's a messy time in tech. And that's an understatement. Yes. And I wondered, what are the main use cases right now? I know there's the women who are internal who would like to get promoted, but I see a lot of what you're teaching women is also highly, highly relevant if you're trying to find your next act, yes, whether it's starting your own business or finding a new job. And I'm wondering who's coming to you now, right now in this mess?
Yes. So who's coming to me in this mess? So senior women, I would say mid-career to senior women. So definitely like 8-10 years plus. And you're right. There are 3 big buckets. The first category are women who really want to grow and advance in their career and rise up into their next promotion. And they are struggling right now because every single company is slashing the number of layers. Their promotions are decreasing. It used to be 10% or so average until last year, and now it's dropped to 8. May not feel like a lot, but it's a lot because there are only X number of promotions every single company. And I also always tell women, I'm like, just a title change without compensation increase is not a promotion. So when I'm talking promotion, I'm also talking about compensation increase to reflect that. So that's definitely one. And these women in these senior roles, mid-career roles, have already heard, no, not yet, not happening. Our budgets are short, or we're freezing all promotions, all of these things. A lot of moms we all know, we take a little pause, whether it's intentional or unintentional, and suddenly we realize, oh my God, everyone is ahead and we are just there. So a lot of those folks who come to the workshop, they also join my Leadership Edge program, which is specifically for women to advance their career. A lot of times, women who come to my Leadership Edge program are also women who have realized that, you know what, I don't see a promotion happening in my current company, or I don't even know if a promotion is going to happen in my company. And so, of course, I work with them, and we then figure out whether, I think one of my superpower that I have, and I'm saying it because I talk about women to advocate for themselves and speak up. And so I'm going to do the same thing here, Christine. My superpower is really diagnosing where the problem is. And I'm very, very quick in making some educated hypotheses about what is happening, especially when it comes to the messy people and what people say and what might they really mean. So if a manager is saying X, oftentimes we're like stuck, like, oh, what does that mean? Is it happening? Is it not happening? And so a lot of times we don't know what questions to ask to keep the conversation happening, and we let go of the power in someone else's hand, and bingo, the ball is gone. And so I'm very good in keeping the ball in my hands. And so we work on either an exit plan, and then you're going to need these skills anyway, even if you're in searching. The senior you go, no one's going to ask you about your probability of getting hired in this market, which is an employer's market, unfortunately, right now, is not by making sure that you can answer questions which has the best star method or the circle method, and ChatGPT can do that faster than like a $20 per month. We have to step up the game. And so again, you have to show strategic framing. You have to be able to show commercial side of the business, that you understand beyond just a business goal. You understand how to have those conversations. You really stand out in that. And it's not that complicated to be answering at that level. The job market is obviously very complicated. I'm not denying that. So that's the second bucket. We're trying to figure out, okay, should I leave? Should I go to the next? How can I really stand out? So a lot of women come there. And then the third category, which I'm so passionate about, is that it happens to the best of us. It's happened to you and I as well, where at some point in our career, we realize, gee, we've outgrown the traditional corporate ladder. And we might stay in because of the financial side, because it's so scary, especially if you're not in your 20s and 30s, to be leaving all of that and starting something out of blue. And a lot of women who are in that boat, one very obvious choice and a common choice that keeps coming up is, I want to start a course or I want to coach. And I'm like, great, you have expertise being in the career field for 15 plus years. But the problem that happens then is, just because you have an expertise doesn't mean you can monetize on that expertise. It's so easy to set up a Calendly link or set yourself up in one of those platforms and say, I'm available for coaching. But if you're not charging what you're really going to and want to charge, so that you can at least equate your salary or your revenue from the business to your last salary and hopefully more, then it's nothing. And so a lot of women, they really struggle on pricing and monetization, because if you have 100 plus clients that paid even $50 per hour, that's easy. That doesn't tell you that there is a market ready who are ready to pay your high ticket offer. And so that's something that is very complicated to test, but it's a very important piece to test. Remember, I told you when I gave myself 3 months, and that was the thing that I tested, my business model and my monetization. And I've never offered my programs for free. I do a lot of pro bono work. I have scholarships. I do the good stuff. But when it comes to me, this is my work. And so if I'm going to keep on shortchanging myself and offering everything for free or for $10 and $200, then there is no way that I'm going to be able to bring in the same revenue, let alone even half of what I was making. Then what do? I get so tired that I end up leaving and I start thinking about going back to work after 3, 4, 5 years. This has been happening a lot to the women. So that's what I work with in the Founders Edge program, which is how do you test? How do you know if your expertise is worth monetizing? So I'll give you an example. I'm working with a woman right now. She wanted to coach engineering leaders, but that wasn't a market where she was able to get a lot of clients. So if you think about, I like to think about this as like 3-circle Venn diagram. One is your expertise, one is your passion, and the third is the commercial viability of your business. You may have the two, and the third piece is missing in this. You're not going to have a sustaining business. You have to have those three with a pretty big overlap. So we started working together. We tested out a lot of things. We did pilots, paid pilots. We did extensive customer discovery. We did problem discovery before we even did customer discovery. A lot of times, I think as founders or to be founders, we go and we say, we want to do X, but what if X is not even the problem? And so she has opened up an art gallery. That's how she has left her corporate job, and she's earning 3 times more than her corporate role. How do I monetize? How do I test whether this is the right offer? Like 100%, I think there are like, you have your own business. It is messy. It's cumbersome. Escape 9 to 5 and work on your own. I mean, for the first few years, constantly, I would actually question whether I was sane enough to even do this and whether I should just apply for a job. Like, it happened for a few years, because it is not if you're just going to start something, it's not going to be your crazy YC story or, a few folks who have done really, really well. You cannot just expect that, bingo, I'm going to write a newsletter and suddenly I'm going to become a billionaire or a millionaire, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to start a coaching business. And I think the one piece is the problem market discovery. Forget your idea. Forget you want to coach. Forget you want to build an app. What is the problem? And how big is the market for that problem? Yeah. There's going to be competition everywhere. It doesn't mean you have to not do that. I treat competition as an indirect proxy for, yes, there is a market for it, but it just means that the way you're going to solve it has to be 10 times better than what exists in the market right now. So very first principle thinking, right? Coming from the startup where you don't you don't know what the problem is, who are your customers? And so you have to, a lot of people will go in to say, I'm going to interview my customers and I'm going to ask them XYZ about what you're offering. But how do you know that that is a problem? And how urgent is that problem that people are going to spend and open up their wallet? Because if you're going to be running a business, which is a low ticket, let's say we're just talking about coaching as an example, because I see so many women who are interested in coaching. So if you're doing a low ticket offer, then it just means you have to get into the volume business. If you're going to go into the volume business, there's nothing wrong, but that just means that your distribution and sales and marketing has to go completely top notch, right? Yeah. So fine, you can do that, but all of this costs money, right? So then at the end of the day, it's also then about what is your profit margin going to be? So again, it comes back to understanding how your company makes money or loses money, or where does the money flow?
There's another piece to this too. You're right. It's having the business acumen to make this successful. What is the market opportunity? What is the market size? I hear a lot of women when they have their idea that they're already telling themselves something in terms of mindset. They'll say things like, this is silly. This is irresponsible. Why am I even thinking of doing this? And what occurred to me when you said you took 3 months to figure this out, but in your program, as you're helping these women think about the business model, it must be helping them shift their mindset as well. They don't know if it's silly or irresponsible until they go through the exercises you share with them.
Yes, 100%. I mean, At the end of the day, I'm very much the market tells you whether something is working or not. So it's the data. If you don't have customers ready to pay, and you don't have to start with a $5,000 program off the bat because it takes time. But I also don't believe that you have to offer everything for free, because if you offer everything for free or very low, then you're testing that low ticket. You're not testing the high. So yes, I think go with the data, go with what the market is telling you if you want to do that, and be open to pivoting. I gave myself 3 months because that's how my brain works.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm that little girl with time boxing, and I love time boxing. I cannot function without time boxing, but time boxing is also something that we do in the program. Because without time boxing, then it ends up you've suddenly lost 2 years with zero revenue, and now you're under the pressure to go and find a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Bosky, for the women of my audience, primarily, it's not just women, but it's mostly women, mid-career, senior career positions. And you'd mentioned you have many superpowers. One of your superpowers is helping women future-proof their careers. If they were to just take one thing you taught them today, if there were just one big takeaway that you'd like them to take away from our conversation, what would it be?
Ooh, I'm going to have to say commercial fluency. Money is powerful, whether you like it or you don't. I'm not asking everybody to just go after the money. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy, it's the fundamental layer. And so you have to understand that whether you are in corporate and you're thinking about growing your career inside corporate, not everybody wants to leave for whatever reason. And the only way of how you're going to get that influence, and you're going to get noticed, and you're going to get tapped for bigger opportunities, is by understanding the commercial side of your business and using that in how you communicate, not by taking on more work.
Yeah.
And if you are someone who is looking for your next role, then, like you've left, or you're almost like certain you need to leave your current company and you're looking to join another company, then you have to be able to understand the commercial side of the offer as well. How do you negotiate? How do you negotiate the non-negotiables? How do you negotiate some of the other things in the offer? That's commercial skills too. Got to understand that. And then if you're someone who's done with the corporate and you want to build your own goddamn table because you've realized you're done trying to play the game, trying to get the seat in that table. You want to build your own table and you want to start your own company. Then you have to understand the commercial side, because I see so many women just like, okay, I need to get my website, my domain, I need to hire devs, I need to do this and I need to do that. No, like you don't need a product. Think about it. When you watch Shark Tank, what is the first question that they ask? How much traction?
Yeah.
And traction means how many paying customers do you have? So it comes down to that, right? Like you have to be able to prove traction in order to even know if there is something out here, or whether you're chasing some fantasy, in which case you have to pivot. So if there's one thing, I will say commercial fluency. I cannot, and it doesn't mean you have to go and get an MBA done. No.
Yeah. Thank you, Bosky. I did want to ask you, because I know some of these women experiencing a specific use case, you've worked with these types of women. I, like you, am done with the traditional systems and working in-house in tech. I do know many women where there's a scenario, they've been in the tech world, it's been quite successful for them, and they do want to figure out how to continue to work within the systems, that they don't want to start their own thing, but many of them are in their 50s and 60s, and there is ageism in the workplace. I wonder if you've had recommendations or suggestions for women who have traditionally been quite successful in tech, but they're not seeing a place for them anymore. Is there any hope that you can give women in this circumstance?
Oh man,
it's hard.
This is hard because I see ageism. There is all of that. I also think that how much ever it angers me, I know that alone I cannot change it, especially in the current world that we live in. I just feel sometimes we're going backwards. I always go back. Like, I used to complain as a little girl to my dad a lot about how things are unfair in this world. So I come from a very middle class family. My mom still works. And so even to send me to the US or for anything, my parents literally did everything. I don't even know how they did it to make things happen for me and my younger sister. I'm sure every person talks about their parents this way, but we didn't come from a lot of means, right? And so I used to complain a lot. I was like, look at these friends. They're really good friends of mine. And they don't have to worry about college. Like, even if their grades and points drop by a little bit, they'll still get the admission. And my dad used to always say, Bosky, you can either keep on complaining about your half glass full, or you can go and find the goddamn water and fill your glass yourself. And when he said that, I did not like it at all, because I thought he never understood. But I think as I started growing up, that was also something that I took it with me at every point in my career, because I was always one of the only one in every single room. And I naively thought, if I get into the exec room, it's going to change and I'm going to become the super powerful woman who's going to do all these things for women. And it didn't happen. I did a lot, but it didn't happen. So I think, to your question, I'm going to come back to that. I strongly believe that as women, we never should give away the power that we have, whatever that power might be. And each one of us has a leverage, and each one of us has the power. So you know how I talked, you have to have the ball in your hand because then you have the control. So I like to keep that. So for women who are in their 50s or 60s, I don't know if going and finding another company is the best solution, because you're going to run into a bigger problem there, like imagine interview, being told all kinds of things, or being seen as someone who's not going to be able to keep up with AI and all of these stuff. And so I'm like, okay, if that is the case, then think about what is that next season of your career might look like. Are you looking to optimize joy and fulfillment? Are you looking to optimize financial freedom? What is it that you're looking to? If it's joy and fulfillment, then is there something outside of work that you could do? Right? So whether that is a board, joining a board, if that is your jam, whether it is rekindling your hobby, maybe it is teaching kids, maybe it is start a community, whatever that is, if that is fulfillment and joy that you're optimizing. If you're trying to optimize the financial side of things, because we're also now thinking about retirement and all of that at that, right? Then you want to optimize not for just joy, if your financial situation is not very secure right now. If it is, and you have a nice retirement package and all of that, and you've been earning really well, then you can go and optimize joy at that point. And let me it happens. But if you're really thinking about the financial side of things to secure yourself, then I would say you want to look at starting something, not a side project, not even a side hustle. But you want to start looking at how you can build that next phase of your career. And again, the cost of entry in this world, in this time that we're living in, is so low compared to what it was even 6, 7, 8 years ago when I started. So find what you can do that also starts bringing in that additional source of revenue, that when the time comes, you still have the power to walk away from that corporate.
But being realistic about this scenario in place for, as you mentioned, for women in their 50s and 60s, applying to jobs right now, the likelihood of success is really, really low. And I still have spoken to people who are trying that route because it's what's been successful for them up until this point. And I think it's really important to accept in a lot of cases. It doesn't mean you can't find a full-time job through applying through your network. You could, but to accept that the odds are against you and recognize that it's not the life you had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And you put words to it, just seeing the situation as it is and finding an amazing next act.
Yeah, 100%. I talk to a lot of women who are like, maybe I'm going to just learn another skill and maybe I'm going to go and do an AI bootcamp. And then I'm like, it could work. And if it's working for you, great. Mm-hmm. But at some point very quickly, we do need to realize that if we do the same thing again and again and again, it's not going to give us a different result. And so you have to ask yourself, how many times do you want to keep on doing? Because it's like just jamming your head on the wall. Like at some point, you're going to start hurting yourself and bleeding, and you're going to get weak, and you're not going to want to keep on. I think that is like a big thing. You know, it hurts me when I talk to women and we're like, no, because I think we all think resilience and that word, right? Like I have a love-hate relationship with this word, because I think that it also messes how we think. Because in the name of resilience, I think we are taught as women that we need to keep banging at it, at the problem. We need to keep on hammering the nail, right? Doesn't matter if we have the wrong hammer or the nail is different. We keep on hammering because it is a perception of resilience. And for me, resilience, like we need smart resilience. That means if you've tried 2, 3 times, 4 times, whatever that threshold is of yours, which is why I like to have guardrails, because then it helps me sanity check. Okay, I'm hitting close, like I said, 3. And if it's going into 3 and nothing has happened, okay, now I need to figure out, like, do I need to change something? Which one do I change? What do I change? Because doing the same thing again and again, it's not going to. So again, you know, like time boxing and guardrails are really, really useful strategy to figure out what you want to do, how you want to do. And there is always an option if you want to believe, even in the worst situation. I think there is a way out. Either we ourselves figure that way out, or whether we get the help from someone else. But I think half the battle gets lost when we start telling the stories to ourselves that this is it, and there is no way out, and this is my life, and this is my future, and I have to just bear. I think that is the hardest part, because I think we show courage from the time we're born as women, as girls, as little babies, and there's only so much. It's like a cup, right? Like if you keep on pouring and pouring and pouring, and if it doesn't get filled, then at some point you're running out of an empty cup. So I think find your tribe who's going to hype you. I think that helps, but make sure that in your tribe you also have people who are not just hyping you just for the sake of hyping you. They also show you the mirror and reality. So I've always had like few people that I know never wanted the best for me in my life, but I still have them in my trusted circle because I like to know the worst case scenario. That's just me. I'm not saying everybody should do it, but for me, I think it's like, okay, so you see how this can fail. Okay, it's good for me to know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bosky, thank you so much for today. I know my listeners will want to find you after they hear this discussion. If they'd like to find you and learn more about their work, where should they go?
LinkedIn. They can definitely go follow me, connect me on LinkedIn. If they mention that they've come through your podcast, then obviously I know that I will accept. They can always check out the website of SheTrailblazes. I think you can always share that. And yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This was lovely. I so enjoyed chatting. Thank you, Bosky.
Absolutely, Christine. You're a wonderful host, and this was an amazing conversation.